I'm going to show you two products that I used and tested out on my own lawn and show you the results. This was weed covered area on the bank of a hillside, and they were just absolutely covered in all kind of cool season weeds, and I sprayed it with these two separate products, one on one side, one on the other, and it's been about 3 weeks. I want to show you what it looks like. I'm Jason Creel, appreciate you watching the video. Let's get started and see the results. This gas line was the divider, and I actually, when I did the video, some things don't always work out the way you hope. I had filmed spraying this area, but it actually deleted that portion of the video. So anyway, I thought, well, it's still the most important thing is seeing the results. So what I'm going to do is talk to you about the two products I'm using, and what's great about these products is they can be used on both warm season and cool season grasses. Now you want to check the label and make sure they're labeled for your grass type, but here's the two products, and these are two that I use regularly. So the one First over here we've got Change Up, and then we've got Blindside. Now, what I like about Change Up is it's relatively inexpensive as far as the cost per square footage. So while this big jug may cost, you know, $200 or so, I'm not quite sure. You can actually get it. You can get it in a 32 ounce jug. I'll put a link in the description below. So if you're not spraying, you know, for a professional spray company like I run, then you may go with the 32 ounce bottle. So I use Change Up a lot, and it's tolerant. You can use it on St. Augustine centipede lawns, which are oftentimes more sensitive to herbicides. Blindside as well. Now Blindside is sulfitrazone, which is the active ingredient in Dismiss, also with metsulfuron. So when you put that, I use it a lot of times for controlling onions and things in the winter, but it's great on Kalinga, great on Virginia buttonweed. Those are some of the weeds that I see in the summertime. So, you know, it's got tons of weeds on the label, both those products do. So what I did was I thought I'm going to test on some tough weeds. So if you look at the yard here, it's Bermuda grass, dormant, and there's virtually no weeds in the yard. But when I did a fall pre-emergent, I didn't spray this hillside. So this hillside, a couple of issues with it. One, I didn't spray a fall pre-emergent, so I had every cool season weed, you know, just about known to man on this bank. That's a little bit of exaggeration, but a lot of them, let's just say that. The other issue is it's quite a fairly steep bank, so grass does not grow very well on this bank. And it's not only that, it's a north-facing bank, which is sometimes tough to get grass to grow, and you end up getting moss and things like that. So when I bought this house, there is actually some zoysia on top of the hill here that is sort of creeping down the hill. But anyway, I got over here and I thought I'm gonna spray it, and I did that about 3 weeks ago. So I'm gonna show you some of the weeds and then show you what they look like. So on this side of the marker here, it was treated with Blindside. On this side, it was treated with Change Up. So let's take a look. We'll go with Change Up first. Quick note, oftentimes when I go spray a yard, I'll blanket it this early in the year. I'll blanket it with a pre-emergent like prodiamine. I'll put a three-way product in there like triplet, and I'm trying to control the existing weeds and also get ahead of the summer warm season weeds. So when I do that, I'm walking and I know that the triplet's going to kill most of the weeds I see. But I also know just from experience that there's certain weeds that's not going to kill, and those are the ones where I would have something like Blindside or Change Up on my truck to go back and spot treat. So this hillside has some of those tough weeds. I'm going to show them to you. So we're about 3 weeks after application. So look here, let me just show you a weed. I'll show you one that's sick and dying versus a healthy one. So this right here is henbit. And henbit is doing great this time of year. So you'll notice this one is not doing so great. Let me find one that hasn't been sprayed. You compare it over here. Now this is non-treated henbit. It's blooming, it's growing great, and so you can see it's really done a lot of damage to the henbit. Now the henbit, again, that would be an example where when I put atrazine and triplet in the mix and spray a yard, it would kill the henbit. I wouldn't really be worried about that. You'll notice a lot of the other big broadleaf weeds, and I mean some big ones out here, they're really starting to turn yellow, and I think what we're going to see is they're going to continue to die. Now, the weather's cold, it's early in the year, so things are slow. Like I said, it's been about 3 weeks since I sprayed, if I would have done this same application, let's say in May when the weather was really warm, we would have got results in like 2 or 3 days instead of 3 weeks. Doesn't mean it's not effective, it just means you got to be a little more patient. So you can see here some kind of geranium, and it's having some discoloration versus a healthier looking plant over here that wasn't treated. Look at some of these weeds, some of them they're really turning brown. And what you'll do in a yard, in a situation like this, like I said, there's almost no grass on this hillside. You see the moss growing and things like that. If there was grass and it was growing, what happens is a weed like this gets sick, even a big weed like this, it's dying, it's in the process of dying, and when you mow it, it oftentimes won't come back, and then the grass fills in, it's not so noticeable. Now everything's so noticeable on this hillside because there's not much grass. One I wanted to point out to you, and this is all over this bank, is this particular weed. It's called field matter, and it's turning colors also, and I genuinely believe it's going to die. It's just taking some time because it's slow. Now you see here, sometimes you'll get some cool season grasses mixed in with our warm season lawns, and you see here the Change Up does virtually nothing to it. It's still bright green and healthy. So Change Up is not a product you're going to use on grassy weeds. Look at the dandelion here. So it did a pretty good job on that dandelion, and a lot of damage done to that. So these weeds are not going to come back healthy, but unfortunately no turf grass to fill in. See here some chickweed that's really starting to show some discoloration. But you notice here the onions, wild onions, wild garlic, things like that, not a lot of action on those. So they're going to be slow to die, but just from my experience, Change Up's not a great product to use on wild onions and wild garlic. I purposely left a little strip in the middle that I did not spray, so you can see some healthy geranium. You can see the field matter right here, bright and green, versus the discolored field matter. So you can see, see these big broad leaves, leafy and green. We're going to be getting up into 60s and 70s soon. It's going to be prime time for these weeds to be growing very fast and healthy, and at the same time the ones that have been sprayed are going to probably accelerate the process of them dying. Alright, so now again, going back to the starting point over here, I sprayed with Blindside. Let me see if you can just notice it just looking at the differentiation in color. So, and I think we're going to be able to see it on the video. So you notice the field matter with Change Up has almost kind of a reddish tint to it. So it's in the process of discoloring. And on the rates on these products, the Change Up, I'm just mixing it like in a backpack sprayer or a little handheld, putting about 3/4 of an ounce per gallon with a little bit of surfactant. The Blindside, it's about 1/4 of an ounce per gallon for that one. I also put a little surfactant in there with that. Sometimes people don't use surfactant with the Blindside. I don't think your risk of causing discoloration to the turf is very high when the weather's cold. So moving over here to the Blindside, and if red was the theme on the Change Up side, yellow is the theme on the Blindside side. So you see here with the field matter, same weed, look how yellow it is. So actually I'd say just eyeballing, at least after 3 weeks, I would say that the Blindside did a little bit better job. Does that mean long term is better? Well, I personally think both of them are going to kill it just fine. But the Blindside, if you're looking for faster results, probably give you a little quicker results than the Change Up. Now I think in this situation, there's a big green leafy weed that looks perfectly healthy. And then here's one, I'm thinking I didn't spray that one, and here's one that has been sprayed, obviously. So you can see it's really discoloring the weeds. The weeds are in the process of dying. But one of the things I want you to notice, and this again, just after a few weeks, I want to show you what it's done to the wild onions and wild garlic, because it's very fast results. So I don't know if you can see that, but I mean, they're laying over sick, and I've got a strong feeling these are not going to come back next year. So your wild onions, wild garlic, you can use the metsulfuron. Is one of the active ingredients in there. You can just use a product like MSM Turf or Manor, which is metsulfuron by itself, and it will oftentimes kill the onions and garlic, though you may not see anything happen. It's just the next year a lot of times they won't come back. But if you want to see visible results in a few weeks, the Blindside will do that to it versus one that hasn't been sprayed over here. You see it's still standing up tall and green versus the discoloration and wilting over. And also worth noting, you see some clumps of cool season grasses in the warm season. This is in some zoysia grass, and you got clumps of cool season grass. The Blindside does virtually nothing to those also. You would need to use like a product like Certainty or Tributol or something like that to knock those out. All right, so what can we learn? Well, these are not the only two products you need, but I do think you need a game plan for spot treating tough weeds in your lawn. So oftentimes, like I said, we blanket a yard with a pre and post-emergent combination. It's relatively inexpensive products. Like I said, I'm using Prodiamine or Triplet, and that gets rid of most of all your weeds. And if I could get ahead of these weeds with a fall pre-emergent, you wouldn't have near as many to deal with. But you oftentimes end up with some tough weeds like the wild onions, wild garlic, like the field matter I showed you. Yellow wood sorrel, also known as oxalis, is one that you'll see that oftentimes will not die from some of those herbicides that I'm blanking the yard with. So, and then as you get into the summer, it turns into other weeds that you're going to start seeing. Where I'm not blanking in the yard in the summer, there's not as many weeds out there. I'm fertilizing, but I still want something on my truck, or if you're a homeowner out in, that you can go and spot treat those weeds with. So that's where products like Blindside and Change Up come in handy. Oftentimes in the summer, when you start seeing a lot of sedges, nutsedge, kalinga, things like that, then you're going to take a product like these and you might even mix it with a sedge product. Now the good thing about Blindside, you don't necessarily have to mix a sedge product with it, because it will work fairly well on kalingas, yellow nutsedge, not so good on purple nutsedge. But Change Up, I might mix something like Solero with it, or Change Up and Pro Sedge. So that way, if I'm walking over a yard, I see some nutsedge, I spray it, great. I see some Virginia buttonweed, I see some chamber bitter, I see some spurge, I see some lespedeza, spray that. The Change Up's going to knock that out. So it keeps you from having to have two separate products in two tanks. You mix those two products together, and now you got something that you can go out there and get most of the weeds you're going to see. Again, it's still not going to be great on grassy weeds, but those tend to be tough to get rid of anyway. These are just two of the products that I'm showing you off today. Appreciate you watching the video. Links are in the description. If you're thinking about getting into weed control and fertilization, or a mowing business, I've got a lot of resources at lawncarelife.com. There's the Weed Control and Fertilization Academy that a lot of people have taken advantage of. It's a video course, so it's going to take you through what you need to know to start a weed control and fertilization business. Most of my products are geared toward people with warm season grasses, because that's what I deal with mostly. But there's also documents, things like that if you need programs, pricing charts, things like that. lawncarelife.com. Subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.